Yo, what's up, guys? Relics is released. I did get pretty lucky in this one, but let's talk about relics. Hey, where do you get them? What ones are interesting? Where to use them? How to use them? What resource to use? And all of that kind of good stuff. So first of all, where to get them? You get them from a bunch of shops, and the main shops that you do get them in are the ones of exchange, and then you're gonna go towards arena. Make sure you get those two every month. You also do have them in guild. Get those two every month. So those are four that you always do want to get. You also want to get the power-ups of the relics that you have in guild. I think you also... Do you also have them over here? Yeah, you also have them over here. You do want to grab both of those always. So they're in arena and in guild. After that, there is, I think, also one somewhere in your Ameria's luck thing over here. I think they mentioned... Yeah, there's one over here, and that's just in the normal one. So you're going to get there at some point if you just normally do your Ameria's luck. But then you can get a bunch more, and that is a little bit more whaley-ish, but I would recommend people to do that. Well, not the whaling part, but just like the recommendation of getting it. And that is the dupe shop, the ancient crystals. You can get a 10 over here. They are a buy of 125. So that will cost you a little bit more than 4 dupes to get that. But especially since it's that early that we have relics, guiding those 10 every month will be worth it for the first few months. It will be a better buy than getting you one LD scroll that's going to give you a fucking Darien, or another rehab that's going to give you a shitty rune that you don't want anyways. So there is a max buy of 10 of there. I would recommend to buy all 10, at least for the first few months, until you have a few relics that you can work with. Then the big question, what are the good relics? Well, few things that you want to look out for are things that make sense. So in this case, the nimble one is pretty good for a lot of places, because you have HP in there, and then you get extra speed goes into your HP, which makes a lot of sense. I have one over here that doesn't make the most of sense because we got attack in here, and then speed goes into HP, but it still kind of makes sense because you can place this on like a Sonya, make it more tanky, on a Shio, on an Etna, making all of those units more tanky. Arguably, yes, it would be better if you had attack in here, so you could actually improve like a Sonya attack. So for Sonya, very specific, more attack would be better. But for the other units, this is a very all-round good thing that you can use on a lot of places. But there's also a whole bunch of combinations that don't make all too much sense, at least for me, because they are very specific. Let's say that you go for this one, HP goes into damage down, and you get the defense. Doesn't make too much sense because if your HP would also be in here, it would help out a lot more to get your numbers down. So what are the ones that I think are interesting? I kind of made a list on that earlier. Let's see if I still agree with that thing that I had earlier. I do still have that over here. So this is what I had. The green ones are the ones I would say are pretty good. The dashes are the ones that I would say are usable-ish, and the ones that I just put across, I probably don't think are that useful. So let's just go from the top. Best thing you can get, PvE-wise, is this damage dealt increased by your attack, while also having that on an attack main. If you have that on an HP main or a defense main, it is not that great. So that is definitely one that is pretty much the best out there. I think one that's really good is the primal for speed into your HP, which is the one that I do have over here. I think that this is a prime. Yeah, this is the primal one. It is then on a nimble. Nimble is just like whatever this thing is. Nimble is then this is attack, and primal is whatever comes in here. So that is something that you have to keep in mind as well. But the primal in all of the stats are actually pretty good in the first place. And then we also do have a bunch of the other things. I would say the attack at the start of the battle, this one, the Valiant, is really good as well. But these are the things that are, on first look, pretty good. But what should you be looking for? Anything that you think of that you would say is like, hey, I can use that on multiple units. Because in the end, you can use this on multiple units at the same time. You can go through the individual unit and equip it, but it's easier if you go to this menu here on the bottom left. I'm just sitting in front of it, but you see it over there. And then you can just select it on like all kinds of units as you want. And as you can see, I already threw this on my whole Siege lineup. I threw it as a bunch of RTA units. It is shared PvE and non-PvP, or PvP and PvE together. So whatever you equip on RTA is also equipped in your PvE and your Siege and everything, which is kind of weird, but sure, I guess we got to deal with that. But it is kind of noticeable if we go to my Lucian, for example. So we did have that one on a high attack equipped on the Lucian right now, which is arguably not the best one for a Lucian itself. But you can really notice the base attack is very noticeable on that unit. So if we go to the Lucian over here and we just simply remove this, we remove a 135 attack by just having this part in there. Lucian will still be a 125 speed extra, so therefore he will always get that 2% too. But if he were this were to be a attack one, he would get another 2% attack, which of course would have been a lot better. So it's kind of looking at what is all round, what is good, and what can you use for that way. Also, what's noticeable is that these upgrades are pretty expensive. So you have the relic power-ups. Every time that you do an upgrade, it gets a little bit more expensive. But we have one more issue that's a little bit more of an issue, and let me actually put that on the screen that we do have over here somewhere. Where is that list of... yep, there we have it. Put that on the screen right there. This is the list of how crazy it is to get a high roll. I got a 12, which you can see over here. A 12 is a 1% chance. You need about 71 chances to get towards that 12. So most of these will end up at a 7 or a 6 mark, which you can also see for the ones that I used is pretty much a 7, a 6, an 8, a 7, those kind of things. Also, what's interesting, because you can equip it on 100 units, getting a duplicate that's lower than the, or getting a duplicate that's higher than the previous one you tried, you can just break it down. Because this one, for example, I can just simply break it down. I can't do that from this screen. But I already have one that's a 10. It's exactly identical on this one over here with the 9, which is on the 6 and on a 7 right there. So for that reason, it is a way to get that. Someone also did do the math on this. If you want to get a 11,000 of these things in, and you only get like 15 a month, which is pretty much the max, you can get a plus 15 after 59 years. So not sure if Countess is going to keep this kind of thing in there still, or they're going to nerf it at some point. I don't know, but getting plus 15 is harder than pulling 2 LD5s from 2 scrolls, which is kind of an interesting thing if you keep in mind like how good these things are. Third way that you can also get these things are, as mentioned, if you break it down. So this one is not usable because this one is just straight up better and it's exactly the same. You also get a few of those things back. So that's something to keep in mind that is pretty nice too. And we can just simply break that down, get a bunch of those. What can you do with these things in the first place? Well, if you go over here, if you break down 5, you can craft a new one. But at first, I will be kind of cautious with this one because at first look, it might be like, oh, this doesn't make sense, that doesn't make sense. But if you take a deeper dive in it, you might be, it's like, hey, if I go from getting attack from my HP, I might throw that on the Chow or something. Or I get HP and therefore I deal damage, I can throw it on the Carnal. There's plenty of units that will actually make it work where it can be pretty good. Another thing is the upgrade relics itself. So those are these materials that you have for the upgrading. I would kind of not start spamming everything for an upgrade. As you can see, I still have a few that I did not upgrade at all. I might be thinking about upgrading them later, but this is the part where it gets a little bit more whaley. And the thing is, you don't have an infinite amount of those things because the first few upgrades are kind of cheap, but the moment that you upgrade more and more, it gets more expensive. Someone did do the math. If you want to go all the way from a 1 to a 15, you need a 93 of those materials to upgrade all the way. Of course, you're probably not going to go to plus 15 because it's crazy difficult to get to plus 15 in the first place, but you kind of get the idea of it. And then you might ask, how much does it cost you to get 93 of those? Well, a 2.7k crystal buy. That is where it becomes pretty whaley, and I would say that is probably not the best buy for you to take it, because you can also get those from the ancient coins, and the ancient coins will only cost you 90 ancient coins, which is the equivalent of 1 LD scroll. So it's technically trading a 1 LD scroll for a 2.7k crystals, which I think is a good buy, so therefore I would recommend to do it in here. So therefore I recommend all people that, well, you don't have any relics yet, you probably want to go towards a bit of relic farming and kind of stuff. Definitely buy all of these over here. You're going to need 1.2k every month. So that's going to be 4 LDs that you need every month to buy all of those. Plus, you're probably going to need a little bit more, 1 or 2, or not LDs, but you need net 5s. You need 4 net 5s per month to buy all of these, a little bit more than that. And then you're also going to need maybe 1 or 2 net 5s to also buy the relic power-up stones if you do want to get those. Do keep in mind at some point, like let's say a month down the line, or let's say a year down the line, or further than a year down the line, you're probably still going to buy all of the relics, but you're no longer going to be buying all of the relic power-ups because you already have a certain one at a +9, so you don't really try to get a +9 and those kind of things. So that's where it becomes a little bit more narrowing down of what do you use, what do you not use. It is noticeable in PvE that I threw my whole team on this one over here, and that really did improve PvE. Okay, the ones that are no damage dealers, I don't care, but just getting that extra 15 in there really does help out. What would be even better is where you have attack, and then you have attack translated into damage. That one, especially where you have teams with a lot of fight runes as you have in here, that is by far the best PvE one. And that is the one that I just showcased over here. Where's that at? Right over there, this one. That is the Conquest one, and then you want probably, I think it's going to be called a Nimble Conquest, because Nimble is, I think, the attack. And that is arguably the perfect one to start off with, because you trade your attack into pure damage, which is really, really nice. And the higher you have on this, the more of your attack translate into that damage, and it's just really good for PvE. It will also help on a lot of siege units, like a Lucian. Just Lucian's way harder on that. There's just a lot of units that would make good use of that. PvP, it's also really usable, so I think that this one by far is a really good one to start off with. On the other side, I would say the HP on speed kind of thing, which is going to be the primal, how is that thing called? I do have one of those. That's the one that I just sold one off because I had a higher one. Oh wait, that's also Nimble? Wait, then maybe Nimble is not the attack part. Oh, Nimble is maybe the part for this. But what then? That's also Nimble Primal, that's Nimble Primal. How is... I have no fucking clue what that's supposed to be, the Nimble Primal then, but whatever it is supposed to be for the name. But the ones that you have, HP, and speed, that one is pretty good on a lot of support units. So that's definitely one of those that you want to take out there as well. This one I did also up because I just wanted to up something with attack, but that's kind of like, oh, you go for something because you have nothing else. And that's maybe not the right choice, because this 8 is actually not that interesting. It's more of a waste for the relic resource that I'm using. This one, for example, will be used because it's good towards like an Erusian, a Solvark, bunch of those kind of units. Also, what you do want to keep in mind is that the certain threshold, especially for speed, if you use a unit and you want to get through this threshold of speed, I did not do the testing on it yet. For example, a Shumar. Does a Shumar get the speed from his passive, and then does that speed calculate into getting this? Because getting Shumar to a 400 speed with his passive is doable. Without the passive is a lot harder. So that's kind of the things that you want to keep in mind in there as well. I'm pretty sure that speed leads do count in. So getting 400 speed, so 2 times the value on this, is doable. But then you're looking at a pretty fast Swift unit with a 33 lead. So those are the kind of things that you also might want to be looking at the moment you start ruining things like, hey, how often do I hit a certain threshold if I'm just above like a 190 or just above a 180 and those kind of things. I don't know the exact values on that, but those are the kind of things right there. And also if you get a 125, you can maybe look at like, oh, can I get that one in 3 times with a 375 kind of style. So there's a lot to these relics. This is the first guide that I'm making on it. As I mentioned, you're not going to get that many crazy good relics on the first try because you're only locking in 50 relics every month. But I would highly recommend, especially for the first few months, try to get those 4 net 5s in and buy those relic things, because that will definitely boost a lot. Because if you don't get those, you're only getting 5 per month, which is 3 times less. So you're definitely going to be falling off a little bit behind on that case. And then also be kind of secure of like, okay, where do you place all of this? Because I could buy all of this right now and I could start upping all of the other ones that I have. But I first kind of want to check, it's like, okay, if I get this one, do I really have a specific one that I would like to use this relic on? And can I place it on multiple units, or is it just for this one very particular unit? Because you also do have the relic, for example, the recovery and shield by max HP is a pretty solid one, but it is a bit more specific because a lot of these units, you probably just want more HP by your speed. If you're working towards like a Gandalf, or you're looking towards like any of those units, like it's nice to have more shield and more recovery, but it's also nice to just have more HP because that kind of does the same thing. So it's kind of a trade-off where you want to place those things and what kind of playstyle you have, and then also based on that, where you want to place that. However, this one, the damage dealt from attack towards attack and then on an attack main, if I had that one, I would have 100% rolled that because that is by far the best PvE thing you can find. However, since I have a plus 15 on a attack already, I would kind of have to do the math of like this one, the plus 15 attack, I would kind of have to do the math on seeing like, okay, if I get a plus 7 or plus 9, is that already better than this or is it worse than this? Because in the end, you do get a percentage of attack every time you do it. And you're going to notice most of your relics will end around like plus 7 or plus 6 because it's just pretty fucking hard RNG to get there. Which once again comes us more RNG, I guess, or something. I think that's all about relics for now. I think I covered all of the grounds that we have on this. If you happen to want to put your relics from here, which is doable, which is just the normal screen that you normally go through, rune management, blah, blah, blah. You also have relics in here. By default, it's locked like this. So you don't see your relics that you already have powered up. If you enable this, you also see the relics that you did already power up. So that's just one of those things. I have no clue why this is not in there at a starter, but potato count was shit. But I think in most cases, you will be equipping most of your relics through this screen and then in here, and then just click it on all of the units that you want. But if you want to equip it on individual units through the management, then you definitely want to make sure that this thing is off. Otherwise, you're only looking at +0 relics for no freaking reason. And that's the whole video. So guys, thanks a lot for watching and see you as always in a next one. Thanks for watching. If you would like to see more guides, join the Discord and check out the content tab for the guide video archive, which contains all of the guides that you might need. Hope to see you there.